coming up.
What else could a merfolk deck have in this spot?
Oh, we could also have Flair. We have a lot of stuff.
What else, Rebel? What else? You're right now you're thinking too much about what's in your deck. You have privilege of that information.
Today I have the Lord of the Fishes, Nikachu, to coach me on how to play Modern with mono blue fish versus an Is It Wizards deck to see how tempo battles tempo, and one of the best lessons I ever learned in coaching. You don't want to miss it. So they're on the play. And can you see this well, by the way?
It looks great.
Okay, so we don't know what they're on, but there's a Lord. Let me just clean this up real quick. There's a Lord, a Trickster, Harbinger of the Sea, Subtlety, and a Flare of Denial. So a good mix of everything. How would you kind of rate this hand? What are you thinking of when you see a hand like this?
Medium but good. We don't have a turn one play, so we're going to really have to hope to leverage Subtlety, which unfortunately is losing some value in this economy with these energy decks, because they I don't really want to Subtlety their one drop because they'll just play it for one next turn. But I mean, we're going to do what we got to do. Flare Denial, way weaker on the draw, especially with this type of hand, because whatever creature we commit to the board, I don't know if I really want to sacrifice it. But then again, if we're up against Living End, it's better than nothing. I would say the hand is fine. I'd prefer to be on the... Well, to be honest, I like to have the pitch spells on... pitch spells like Subtlety on the draw, because I'm going to get an extra card to recoup what I've lost. And another good thing about this hand is Harbinger of the Seas, if it connects with the right matchup, could just end the game really on the spot. I mean, it is the only one card win machine that I have available to myself in Modern at the moment. So we got that going for us.
Yeah, I actually noticed that recently in a lot of games I've been playing, or the few games I run against Merfolk, is Blood Moon is pretty good right now because everyone's extra greedy of the land base, but you can still play out your Galvanics and stuff. But Harbinger is you really don't get to do anything if you stick a Harbinger. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I think I kept this. There's no reason why we wouldn't. And then let's see what they do.
Lands and spells.
Yeah. So Thundering Falls, they leave a card on top and then hit a Mutavault. So sometimes I try and figure out when to sequence Mutavault so that I can attack with it, but I don't think we're attacking anytime early, just because we see the red here. So I think just setting up double blue here is fine, good enough.
By default, if I have no intention of attacking with Mutavault next turn, if there's 0 probability, I will not play a Mutavault. I mean, you could also have it in play if you really need it for Hexcatcher to sacrifice, but otherwise, when it comes to attacking, I will just not put Mutavault in play until I have some intention of attacking with it next turn.
Makes sense. So, pretty easy. We play an island here and pass, no other play. All right, Hall of Storm Giants. And then we have Kit's Otterball Elite.
Oh, that new thing.
The new thing, yeah. So, when this went on the stack, I mean, I definitely passed too quickly, but I did think about potentially Harbingering this. Not Harbinger, sorry, Subtlety this. But I wasn't exactly sure because, if we Subtlety this, next turn we play a Lord. I don't know. What would you do here? Would you just let it sit?
The problem is I don't know where we're going to use this Subtlety. You could use some sort of Patience, because another thing is if they don't have a mountain available. So let's first talk about our game plan here.
Yeah.
Very often versus a blue-red deck, we're probably just going to win with Harbinger of the Seas hitting the battlefield. So if I want to plan for that, I could try to get a Trickster in play / Lord of Atlantis turn 2. Then we have Flare of Denial that can protect the Harbinger of the Seas by turn 3. But the only thing I really want to pitch from my hand if I want to Subtlety this is the Flare of Denial. What is this? Vigilance and Prowess? I think you have a lot of room here. I would say I'm not exactly sure what's the best thing. You can either Subtlety it or you Trickster this thing on the following turn. I think either might be okay. But with one thing is if you Subtlety this, then they have to tap out next turn, which in that case might put them shields down for your Harbinger of the Seas.
Okay, if we Subtlety this now, I play a land. Next turn to play a land, tap down Kits or tap down. All right, and then we go to our 3, then play Harbinger.
Potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I can see that.
Our critical turn is going to be turn 3, and actually our opponent might even know that and may not even want to play this creature. Like, they might have removal in hand, but if they don't, they have counter spells, which they can actually like loot away. Actually, now where I'm thinking about with the counter spells, maybe it is just better to subtlety this thing, so we don't get our opponent to throw away dead. I wouldn't say dead cards because we don't have Vial or Cavern of Souls here, but they could become awkward.
Yeah. So when they put this on the stack, I mean, I did pass too quickly, but I was also thinking about like the subtlety on this card could throw them off tempo enough where, like, you know, us getting to put the merfolk on board first to make them decide either they want to remove it or do something else is kind of crucial. But also, like, I was thinking, or I agree that like the Harbinger is like one of the main plans, right? So another idea was potentially like holding on to the subtlety to try and like force them to spend their mana on their next turn so that we have like all the free spells. It's just subtlety is really awkward. But yeah, I think, you know, doing it or not doing it isn't super important, but that was just something that I was thinking about.
Well, because this is going to be a Wizards matchup, the subtlety actually can be useful very late in the game for hitting things like Snapcaster Mage, Tashanda's Tidebinder. So they have a good decent chunk of creatures that when we have 4 mana up, we have no problem playing subtlety on.
Yeah, so here we have a decision between holding up mana for Trickster or Lord. I didn't want to play the Lord because I don't want to just freely expose it to their removal, and I kind of want to like play the Trickster on their end step to try and bait them into like spending mana so then we can play the Harbinger.
No problem.
Oh, see? Okay.
You're thinking about something.
We're thinking about something, and then that whole plan came together.
Well, let's talk about this actually before we go too far. So you're thinking about Lord of Atlantis versus Trickster. You're afraid of the bolt hitting the Lord. So very often with Merfolk, everything's gonna die. Like that's just the nature of this deck. Like our Modern has more, like, a lot of removal out there. So very often we do have to be thinking in a way, if our stuff is definitely going to die because we know our opponent has removal, what do we want to stick on the battlefield last? And then we start playing like the more garbage creatures up front, even as a threat. They are going to have to deal with them one way or another. And as they use removal on those things, then that preserves our more valuable creatures down the line. So I do like the idea of Trickstering here, especially since it's like taps down this Otter. And we can follow up, and we'll have preserve Lord of Atlantis later on in the game.
Yeah, I like the phrasing of that, of like preserving the most important creature for last. I think it's a very easy way to think about how to sequence your creatures. So we'll take one here. I guess like maybe we could have just played the Trickster here anyways, just to preserve the 1 damage, because the whole point is just to tap the Trickster or tap the Kitsa down anyways.
I think it's okay that you waited to the end.
Yeah, so here we play Trickster. Of course, they draw on discard. All right, now we have a Master of the Pearl Trident.
Here's a very important question for you.
Yeah.
What do they have?
What do they have? Oh, they could have so many different things. They could. Okay, actually,
they can.
This is kind of a cheat because I just played this game an hour ago, so I kind of know. But reasonably, like, you can imagine there's like a Bull, a Counterspell, a Flare of Anor, a Snapcaster. Yep. There's like nothing. They've played nothing. All they played is like a Kitsa and the Sculling Tarn and haven't done anything right.
But they could have Snapcaster Mage, but they probably won't play that because there's nothing really to Snapcaster at the moment.
Right. So the other important thing was when they played Thundering Falls, they kept the card on top. So it could be a land, but because they haven't played any spells at all, they're probably going to load it on spells, right? So I don't think this is the time currently to play the Harbinger. So because we can't play the Harbinger, the next question is like, what do we do with our turn, right? Because if we just pass here, then a lot of what I've learned through talking with other pro players is you want to spend like your mana efficiently, right? Or like you want to be able to put all your mana down. The problem, the struggle, or like the challenge here is that there's a tension of I want to put creatures down, but they're representing a lot of removal, as we're saying. So is it better that we hold our creatures for later? Because right now there's not that much pressure. The Kitsa does keep drawing them into like potentially better cards. So there's pressure in that form, but we're not like losing the game, right? So That's a lot of words. How would you proceed with this turn? Like, how would you think about this?
So I always think about there's always in every matchup, like some sort of back-breaking play our opponent could possibly do, whether it be like, what's it called, the One Ring, or they're going to slam a Planeswalker, or they're threatening Snapcaster Mage into Flame of Anor, or just Flame of Anor in general. Is the thing a wizard by itself? I'm pretty sure it's a wizard.
It is, yeah, it's a wizard.
Yeah, maybe a little even more reason to play Subtlety on turn 2.
Yeah.
But so I gotta wonder if I tap out now, am I at risk of getting completely blown out? Because actually playing land pass and holding up Flare of Denial is not the worst thing in the world. And even though we don't use our mana, if they don't use their mana either, we're sort of even. So if I play land, do nothing, they play land, do nothing. All right, so we didn't actually waste anything technically. And we even have 2 lands in our hands, so we have some potential to go play land on turn 4, pass and hold up Subtlety, and then end of turn maybe play Subtlety. And we do have Flare of Denial just in case of some sort of Flame of Anor thing. Yeah, you're right, where in general, you do want to use your mana as efficiently as possible. Sadly, with Merfolk breaks. In general, you want to follow the rules, but there are a lot of situations where you have to break the rules because the tension of the game is going to be balanced by some sort of game-ending card. I'm a little paranoid of a Flame of Anor right now, to be honest. So if you played Lord of Atlantis, actually, well, okay, so we could play Lord of Atlantis, but if we do play Lord of Atlantis, we'd be somewhat shields down.
Yeah.
To a flame, maybe not completely, but somewhat shields down. You have,
if we play Lord, we also just the other thing is if we played Lord, we could theoretically still defend against a flame, but it costs the Trickster on Flare, and they can easily then bolt down the Lord, and then now we're just down a lot of really good cards.
I'm not afraid of the bolt on the Lord. Honestly, if they have 1-for-1 removal, that's just how this game goes. But I do want to save Flare for things like Snapcaster Mage, for example, which will definitely be a 2-for-1. So we got to save the Flare for. We need Flare. If I'm going to 2-for-1 myself, it's got to be a way to keep the game in balance versus our opponent's massive card advantage spells.
That's really interesting, actually, because the way you're kind of talking about it makes me think if they Snapcaster bolt a creature, that's actually kind of a good outcome because that means they didn't Snapcaster Flame. Because Snapcaster Flame, or the more they resolve Flame, the worse this game gets, right? So if we identify as Flame, if we identify Flame of Anor as that one of the few really game-changing cards in this matchup, then we should do everything we can to eliminate or reduce that.
Yeah, I forgot about Flame of Anor, because this thing is a wizard, we actually had a little bit more incentive to Subtlety this thing to make the Flame of Anor harder, because we're not down 2 cards when we Subtlety this thing on turn 2. We'd only be down 1 because they lose a card. It either goes to the bottom or it goes to the top. So it's not anyway, it's pseudo, it's like a pseudo force of will in a sense in this situation. But I also bring up the question what could they play here, because it is so important to be on top of what are in the decks in Modern or just in general. Like we said, we need to connect our cards properly versus our opponent's threats. And if you have no idea what's going on in their deck, then you are way more likely to get blown out by your opponent's threats. So it's so much more important with Merfolk. You can't just autopilot your deck. I'm always constantly thinking everything they can do on turn 2, everything they can do on turn 3. What can they do with 2 mana? What can they do with 3 mana? What can they do with 4 mana? Because that's how I can better line up my cards with my opponent's cards. So let's see what you do here. I think you have 2 options. The first one is land pass. The second option is attack with Trickster, deal 2 damage, and then post-combat play a Lord.
Why would you do that? Oh, just to guarantee 2 damage.
No. We're guaranteeing 2 damage. There's actually a lot of reasons for this, but we're guaranteeing 2 damage. But we just said we might play Flare of Denial, right? In response to, say, a Flame of Anor.
Yeah.
So what do we want to sacrifice after that? Do we want to sacrifice a Lord or a Trickster?
Oh, Trickster.
Exactly. But if we play Lord first, and then they play Flame of Anor, and I sack the Trickster, then we don't get in the 2 damage.
True, yeah.
I very often will play a Lord post combat because there's actually a lot of problems. This sounds really weird, but there's a lot of problems with playing Lord first. Oh, here's another thing. Okay, you played Mutavault. Do you plan on attacking with this Mutavault next turn?
Potentially, I did not think that through. I think the decision between Mutavault or Otawara was that for some reason I might want to hold on to Otawara.
I think Otawara has some value. Okay, you know what? I'll let that slide. That's true. But the problem is, if you play Lord here, you can't represent like Spell Pierce or other post combat tricks for 1 mana or like a second main phase Tide Shaper or anything like that. I think it's fine. But anyway, you're more shields down with this Mutavault. Actually, it doesn't do anything. I guess you can represent Dismember, so you're better off playing Lord first and then play the Mutavault second main phase to deprive your opponent of more information about what's going on in your hand.
That makes a lot of sense. Just wanted to, before we move on, I think what I really liked you said earlier was the idea of connecting the right cards based on their plays. Because so, I kind of jammed into this game not knowing what my opponent's on. This moment during this game, I actually had no idea it was Wizard still. I thought it was like some weird Storm deck.
Oh.
Yeah, I was thinking oh god, this is Storm, because you play Kitsa to like copy the spell or something like that.
Thundering Falls and a Wizard. This is a Wizard deck.
Yeah, with the Hall of the Storm Giants Wizard deck. Storm deck. But yeah, like the idea of just making sure you're aligning those cards is just so important by knowing, like just spending time to think about it. So here we do the other play of not playing.
Yeah, we're going to attack for 3.
So here, we're attack for 3, and now they have a bull on the Lord. We could flare it, but I don't think it's like, we'll just let it go because we have another Lord anyways. They're still taking 2.
So I want to tell you, let's go over some game theory here, because your opponent actually has the option to also kill the Trickster. And that's why I also like to delay playing. I very often, even if I didn't have Flare of Denial in my hand, I honestly still wouldn't even play the Lord here. And the problem is that once they see the Lord, they have more information about how to use their Lightning Bolt. And some X percentage of the time, they'll actually kill the Trickster and they'll take 0 damage. Whereas if you attack with Trickster and you have 3 mana up, they'll take 2 damage waiting to see post combat if they should kill a better threat or kill Trickster. So in here, it's not going to change anything, but by playing the Lord first, you give your opponent the option to kill the thing that's actually attacking them immediately, and they preserve their life total as high as possible.
Interesting, yeah. It's kind of the same thing we just did with the Trickster on the Kitsa, that we took the 1 for fun, just to see if we can have a better target, and exactly the same idea here. So
I think against... I was just saying... I was trying to get into a game theory discussion, but like in game theory, you want to make the move... But based on game theory, you want to make the move that is going to yield you the highest percentage of winning, no matter what your opponent does.
Right.
And at least in my opinion, by attacking for 2, very often tempo and control players, they'll take the 2. Like it's almost, I would say completely guaranteed. They don't really want to kill Trickster. They'll take the 2. And then post-combat, if I play a Lord, they might still kill the Lord, but if I play Lord pre-combat, and I'm completely shields down, we've played our land drop for the turn, we've basically told them we don't have like any post-combat plays unless we're playing Aether Vial. With that more information, they might kill the Trickster, and then they take less damage for this game.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting, just because I think also my brain at the time was probably thinking like, we want to play the Lord just to try and put some more damage through, but potentially, that was actually not the case. Just attacking with just Trickster and leveraging like the idea that they could be worried about it guarantees more damage.
So I guess if they're wizards yet?
Yeah, there's a lightning bolt here.
Oh, so okay. So now you think they're wizards.
Yeah.
So how comfortable are you feeling with them untapping with 4 mana, and we are basically shields down? And we do have the Flare of a Denial, but it's a bit awkward because we have to sack our creature. Not
super comfortable, just knowing that there's probably a lot more removal coming, as we can see in the discard here, and we'll let it go. And they paid 3 life on this. There's no other land in their hand because they chose to play a Sink into Stupor, which does have a big cost. So they're definitely representing the Flame or another 3 mana play. All right, so here we're playing the island. And then we can hold mana up for subtlety or try and play through that Harbinger, but we see no counter spells yet, and we can't really protect the Harbinger because no, we don't have a Trickster. So I would assume we just pass here.
Yeah, we're going to pass here. What do you think your opponent can do now? We're playing a Lord. Oh, this is not good. We're playing... Yeah, I would say... Okay, let's talk about... This is a very merfolk specific. Lord of Atlantis and Master of the Pearl Trident, these are 4-drops. You should look at them like 4 drops, 5 drops, 6 drops, because it's like the very last thing you should be playing, not like the earliest thing that you should be playing. It's literally a grizzly bear. But they're pretty good at closing out the game if they don't die. So they're very, very nice on the back end. Like I said, like these are pretty good. I do like Lord of Atlantis, but they're very useless in the front of the game. So like when our opponents exhausted all their removal, that's when Lord of Atlantis shines. But we're not at that point yet. And like, what could they play here? What do you think is their range?
Well, then now that's resolved. Bolt, Snapcaster, Galvanic Discharge, or Flame. There's like a lot of ways it can go wrong.
They could have Tishana's Tidebinder, because they definitely wanted 3 mana.
Yeah.
So it's either like Snapcaster to play Galvanic Discharge, Tishana's Tidebinder, it's Flame of Anor, what else? Maybe that's close to it. I might be missing a card. They might hold up Flare of Denial themselves. I can't remember what counter spells are in their
I
deck.
think so.
But anyway, okay, so we do know they have either a Snapcaster or a 3-drop. I would just pass. Like, what are they? They can't Flame of Anor if we pass with 4 mana. And I think Subtlety is a great card here. And then, you know what? If they do nothing, just play Subtlety at the end of their turn.
Yep, that's what I was thinking when we're watching the game. But in the game, I wanted to apply some pressure because I think I was concerned about the Kitsa filtering their cards.
I mean, your life total is very, very high here. This actually highly risks them playing like Snapcaster Mage, Bolt Lord, and then blocking Mutavault. Yeah, this is classic.
This is a disaster.
Yeah, this is, how can I put this? This is exactly what your opponent wanted to do.
Yeah. So they're targeting Discharge, and then we're really lucky here that they chose to discharge the Mutavault.
Oh, interesting.
Because if they discharged the Lord and blocked with just Kitsa on the Mutavault, that would be really sad. Because even if we flared the Galvanic, they still get to block. So luckily,
weird play.
They chose another target. But still, the important thing to bring up, I think, for everyone at home is that if we think about what they want to do, like, it's important to like not allow our opponent to do that thing. And I think we clearly read there's like a Snapcaster Bolt.
But even then, Snapcaster Bolt, Flame of Anor, what else? Maybe a counterspell, Tishana's Tidebinder. In all of those lines, you just want to go land, then pass. We want to play at the end of our opponent's turn and make the war on their turn, not to be doing it on our turn.
Yeah.
Because they fought a war and then they get to untap all their mana. Whereas if we just pass the turn with 4 mana, okay, well, if you don't want to use your mana, then it's wasted. And we still had the play of just playing a Subtlety. And I don't mind if Snapcaster Mage comes down and kills my Subtlety. That's fine, because that's 1 less removal spell for my Harbinger of the Seas.
Yeah. So they're down to 2 cards, and we have 4 mana again. So here, I noticed we could, because they're down 2 cards, we could potentially try to take out their red by casting the Harbinger here. Question is, it just costs a lot. Everything we do just costs a lot here.
Yeah, so one problem is, first off, we're behind now on the board.
Yeah.
Before we were even. When it was like Lord of Atlantis and this Otter, it was even. I think I would say we were ahead because they had less life than us. But now it is swinging in their favor. They've got a Tamio out, they've got a Snapcaster Mage out, they've got this Otter in play. With the game now moving in another direction, we now have to get greedy if we want to get back into this game. I actually don't think we're likely to get this Harbinger of the Sea. Well, we do have one line, I guess. Maybe we don't have to be that greedy. We do have a line of playing Subtlety on their turn and try to connect with Tamio, because Tamio wants to attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? We don't have to get greedy. I thought, like, there is a point where if we're far behind enough, we might want to play Harbinger of the Seas and force them to have a counter spell. And frankly, we got 3 removal spells out of them. And Harbinger of the Seas is now that much more likely to live but they still might have a counterspell. So I think it is reasonable to pass and try to subtlety this Tameo.
Yeah, so I think that's what we're doing exactly. And then here comes an invert polarity.
Invert polarity. We're going to flip a coin.
Yeah, and then I think we flare this.
Yeah, I guess so. What's funny is if they invert polarity, the Harbinger of the Seas is sort of in our favor. Well, sort of. We don't want to give them a Harbinger of the Seas.
Draw a card, discard, and then there's the bolt.
Oh, one more bolt. Yeah, this otter reminds me of Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which was a pretty strong card if left completely unmatched. All right, well, this was a great draw, as long as any creatures are good creatures. So we can slam this Harbinger. We still have to deal with a flip Tameo, though, because Otter, Draw, Step, and Clue will flip the Tameo.
Yeah.
Okay, why didn't we play the Hexcatcher?
I think at the time I was thinking about, I don't know why, because I was looking at it, I was like, I should play it just now because they were tapped out.
Yeah, that's the thing. We should like the only thing that they can play now are counter spells. That's the only thing. Things like like they can only play counter spells. So if we are doing this when they get to untap, then that's it gives them the chance of countering the thing. See, we got hit by a spell snare. So
Yeah.
we always got to think. So we always have to be very wary about what our opponent can do. And when your opponent is tapped out, this can especially when you have Harbinger of the Seas out, this can be a great moment to just empty your hand, so they can't use their counter spells, and then whatever, they'll untap, they'll pass to you, you untap, and then we go on with the game.
I think what happened, because when I'm watching this game, I'm like, yeah, we're just gonna play the Hexcatcher there because they're tapped out. I think what happens often with me is I probably had some other plan. Like, I was like, oh, maybe I can like hide the Hexcatcher and make them attack with everything and then flash it in and then block it and totally not even look at these things and think about that stuff. So I think that's like an issue of mine, is that like I get distracted by a single plan and then like stop kind of like looking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're looking at like a potential blowout, but it came at the risk of you not getting your card to resolve.
Yeah. And it was a really bad time because we're behind.
Yeah, the risk was too high. Yeah, the risk was too high. We are behind. And also we're ahead in we're not really ahead, but like we at least got a Blood Moon on the battlefield. So the only spells that they could play were these counter spells at this point. I mean, they could play creatures too. Sorry, they can also play creatures. They can still play Snapcaster Mage, other otters, the Shina's Tidebinder.
Yeah.
But we're still playing into the few cards that they still have available.
So let's go to game 2.
Hey, if you like this video, please support my Patreon to keep funding more coaches to be a part of the series. In the future, there'll be a lot more gameplay and coaching content coming. So you definitely want to subscribe to learn more on how to improve at Magic and see some tight play.
Perfect. All right, here's game 2, and let's see what happens. So we definitely know they're wizards now.
We definitely know where they're wizards.
Yeah.
They showed us all the wizards.
We're on the play. I can also show the sideboard because I don't sideboard super well. Against this deck, I took out a couple Harbingers, and then I think I took out the Tricksters, and I brought in the Stern Scolding, and then I forgot what else I brought in. I also brought in the Tidebinders as well to stop the Snapcasters and stuff.
Yeah, I like the Tidebinders. I actually like the Harbinger of the Seas a little bit. I would maybe shave one. Maybe shave any. I don't know, because this card cuts off all their removal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Chalice of the Void, all red stuff, effectively. This is how I often beat a lot of these blue decks, is just with Harbinger of the Seas. A card I might have removed is maybe Dockhand, because it deals very little damage.
Yeah. I think Dockhand's also hard. Like, I think another thing that's hard with how I would sideboard this deck is because I used to think, or as I told you, I thought about like a tempo deck, right? So if we remove too many 1-drops, then it like really lowers the I guess like, aggressive plays that we could have. But I guess if we think about from a control deck, it doesn't matter, if we have the 1-drop or not.
I'm rarely thinking about how to be aggressive. There's against the Cascade decks like Living End and Footfalls, I might be this is mainly the reason why this Dockhand even exists. Or versus combo matchups where I need a 1-drop for Hexcatcher on turn 2. This is like Dockhand's basic, it's more or less sole purpose in the deck for those those runouts. But aside from that, I'm playing very patiently. This is a game of chess here, and whoever blinks first is going to lose. Unfortunately, in game one, we blinked a lot.
We blinked a lot, yeah.
We blinked a lot. They're very happy about that. So let's try to blink a little less. Oh, I can't see the game.
Oh, whoopsie, sorry. I also forget. I have to reshare every time. Can you see now?
No.
Okay, let's try again. How about now? Oh.
Watch stream. Oh, maybe. Yeah. Okay, I see.
All good?
Yeah, all good.
Great. So here's our hand. We're on the play, game 2. I actually do like this hand a lot because, turn 1 Vial, the only thing they could have is like turn 1 Force Negation, but that's a fear I'm ready to take on. We have a Master of the Pearl Trident and a Tide Shaper. I like the Stern Scolding because it hits their kits and their Snapcaster. And the Dismember is like, okay, it'll find its uses. So I think this is a good mix of everything. I just like the turn 1 Vial.
So one thing about Dismember, normally I actually side out Dismember in this matchup because dismembering a Snapcaster Mage
is pretty bad
value. We have a lot of ambushing we could do against Tameo, and Tameo, dirtling around and drawing cards, actually sometimes not even enough. And then if Tameo flips, I've killed Tameo a million times. Whatever is also there's a lot of poor targets where the wizard deck gets value first, like Subtlety. So they subtlety our creature, we lose a creature, but then we dismember it later. That's not a way of getting ahead. This is just a way of slowly losing behind. I might keep a few dismembers only for that otter. What is that otter called?
Kitsa.
Kitsa?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I might keep it for Kitsa because Kitsa is a card drawing machine. So I might have left 2 dismembers in the deck just for that. But aside from that, dismember I usually find very low value in matchups where my opponent's creatures have tons of ETBs. But it's sometimes a necessary evil. But in this type of matchup, I think it would be overall pretty poor.
Yeah, it's interesting because I get so scared of Tameo. Not that I know Tameo is threatening, but it's uncomfortable to let her live, right? It's just because they get to draw cards. But something I've learned or tried to practice more is being more okay with being uncomfortable and holding my removal. So just a little note on Tameo. So play Mutavault and then get that Vial in.
Yeah, I don't mind Mutavault turn 1, especially since maybe you'll play it on turn 2. Sorry, maybe you'll attack and get in for 2 damage. Because if they tap out here for something, you potentially not this because Tameo can just easily block. But there was a world where you can attack for 2. I don't know if they play Preordain or something like that.
Yeah, so this is a good pickup. Hexcatcher makes us a lot better just because an uncounterable way to then interact with them. So here, I think we dismember this and then just play Tide Shaper because they already have islands. We can bring it in the Tide Shaper because we don't hold up Stern Scolding for their dumb otter.
Yep. I like the plan. I like it. Looks great.
One thing I was wary about for Dismember is that they do have Bolt Snap Bolt. So being bolted is definitely a concern. So show the Stern Scolding. I was worried about a Spell Pierce there, but I figured we'd just use it. I thought about potentially holding a Stern Scolding for a better time where I can defend it, because the next turn we can have Hexcatcher up with Master Pearl Trident.
I mean, if they have Spell Pierce, they have Spell Pierce. Otherwise, you'll never use this.
Yeah.
Stern Scolding. But also, pretty often people side out Spell Pierce versus Merfolk, because it only has targets versus our other cards.
Yeah, so here I think I do an interesting thing. I don't know if energy matters for this, for the wizard deck, but here I decided to flash in the Hexcatcher and sacrifice the wizard just to deny them of the energy.
That's fine. I think that's fine. And you have the Hexcatcher in play.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is something that they'll know about, but that being said, I think the energy does sort of matter. So I would definitely deny them as much energy as possible. And I also like playing the Cavernous Souls here so that you can activate. Well, why did you play the Cavernous Souls?
Why did I play the Cavernous Souls?
Yeah, why did you play the Cavernous Souls?
I just figured that we want to put the land down so then next turn we could potentially draw a land, fire up the Mutavault, and have 2 mana up. Even though we have a Master and put in for free.
Oh, you mean? Oh, yeah, that's the thing. So I usually try to keep some cards in my hand if I have nothing to do with them next turn. usually by default, because it is a lot harder for someone to play against someone who has 2 cards in hand than they have 1. In this case, we do want to put the land in play because it has some practical purpose on the board, because we can activate Mutavault to protect ourselves from like Flame of Anor here. I don't want to sack my Hexcatcher, and I don't want to sacrifice my Master of the Pearl Trident. So there is some practical purpose, but if I have no purpose of using this land, I would prefer to make the game a lot harder on our opponent by just like sandbagging the land. Like if I draw, say, Spelune next turn, we can just play Cavern of Souls and play it anyway. Like I don't think it hurts us at all by holding it up in our hand. At least in this scenario. There's some decks, like if I have Silvergill Adapt, there's a world, or if there's some versions of the deck, you might want to make all your land drops. Oh, we didn't put this Lord in play?
Yeah.
Why didn't we put our Lord in play?
I'm not sure. I don't know why we didn't do that.
We don't need to be that patient. I mean, we want to be patient, but not that patient. So I think this is a good opportunity to attack. We even play around Snapcaster Mage.
With the Mutavault and 2 mana up to sacrifice stuff.
Because, like, you could... Oh, we draw another land. That's fine. No! Oh, no, what are we doing that for? Oh, what are we doing that for?
I think I was trying to bait them into... I don't know.
So, fortunately, this is going to work for you. Anyway, we should have played Master of the Pearl Trident last turn, because I don't think there's any big blowout that they could kill us with. Like, even with Snapcaster Mage, you can activate Mutavault and then
counter
And then this turn, you would attack with both Hexcatcher and Master of the Pearl Trident, and they have no good block. Because the Hexcatcher is a 2/2 that has Island Walk, and your Master of the Pearl Trident is a 3/3 that gets through the Snapcaster Mage. So we would get in a clear 5 damage.
Yeah.
Now this is really, I don't really like you playing your lands from your hand here, because A, you have nothing to do with them at all. And now your opponent knows they only have to play around 1 card. And so you're going to be in a situation here where you're going to play your Master of the Pearl Trident, and they know you have nothing left in your hand for future turns. Like, you can't have Flare of Denial. Alternatively, okay, so let's say you activate Mutavault with Cavern of Souls, hold up 1 island, and attack. What could you have here?
If I activate Mutavault with 1 island and attack.
So, no, activate the Mutavault with the Cavern of Souls.
Yeah.
You have 1 island up.
Yeah.
And you attack with, say, both of them. What could you have here?
Including the Aether Vial?
Including Aether Vial.
If we're pretending I have multiple cards in hand?
If we have 2 cards in hand.
For 1 blue? What do we have for 1 blue?
And what do we have for 1 blue?
Oh, Dismember.
What else? What else, Rebel? What else?
Oh, a Stern Scolding.
What else?
Oh,
What else, Rebel? What else?
I can't think of the fit. I don't know. What's another card we could have? I literally don't know.
What else could a merfolk deck have in this spot?
If we had... Oh, we could also have Flare. You know, we have a lot of stuff.
No, okay, we could have Flare. What else, Rebel? What else?
I don't know.
You're right now you're thinking too much about what's in your deck. You have privilege of that information. Your opponent doesn't.
Oh,
what
I see.
else?
I don't know.
That a random wizard player has played against merfolk before. What else could they have in their hand if you have 1 blue up?
Spell Pierce.
Yes. Okay. What else? We're getting somewhere.
I don't know why we would play Dispel, but
maybe Dispel.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Storm. Maybe Mystical Dispute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about like the levels here. Right now, you're just playing your deck at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think you're paying attention too much about what your opponent could do at almost at most of the given points here.
It's true.
Level 1, people are playing their deck. Level 2, you're going to make plays completely based on what your opponent can do. So you're going to think about your strategy and your opponent's strategy. Level 3, you're going to think about how your opponent thinks about your strategy. And then, like, on an ultimate level, your opponent thinks about what you're going to do. You know, we're both going to think on the same level of, like, okay, I know your strategy, you know my strategy. What is the best thing that we can do? And part of how your opponent thinks about us is not based on like what's exactly in our 75, because they don't know that. Right. They don't know that, Rebel. That's hidden. That is one of the intangible resources in Magic the Gathering, is that information. I'll have you know, Gitaxian Probe is banned because of information. It gives like so much information to one side of the battlefield versus the other, because they do not know what's in our deck. they partially have to play around all those variations at the same time. Like against like every single card they ever played against a merfolk deck, they have to keep that in their head when they make all their plays, all of them. So if you have 2 cards in your hand and you have 1 blue up,
Or 3.
because we can't use, or 3, we can't use this mana. That will make their plays way harder to make. And we leverage a lot more pressure on them, because once they play the Snapcaster Mage, and I'm assuming we're going to play this Master of the Pearl Trident, we will now be completely empty-handed, and they'll know, okay, now that's their spot where they can empty their hand and do as much damage as possible. Whereas if we even have 1 card in our hand that is going to put some doubt in their mind, maybe they go for, I don't want to say 1 ring because that's not in their deck, but like, let's say they go for a big tap for the 1 ring and they get blown out. Well, they can't get really too blown out here because we have Hexcatcher. Let's say we don't have Hexcatcher, but we have potentially Flare of Denial. Maybe that puts them super far behind. So the point is, I think we give way too much information for no reason by playing this land. And on top of that, I really don't like playing my lands pre-combat. I try to play, I can't tell you for certain what is the best thing to do, but I try to play my lands post-combat if I'm going to play lands.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give my opponent too much information about what's in my hand. If I play my lands pre-combat, I might be telegraphing that I have some sort of combat trick. In this case, we're not telegraphing it it doesn't make any sense, because we have if let's say we have Trickster or Hexcatcher, we can put it in play with Aether Vial, so it doesn't change anything. So you can put your lands in play pre-combat, but in this case, I think we are giving our opponent like way too much information for no reason. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this.
That was really helpful, because one of the biggest challenges I've had, they'll get to resolve this galvanic discharge soon, chat. is I really struggle with trying to picture how my opponents think of what I'm doing, because it's just much easier to, as you're saying, do like the level 1 thing of just playing my deck the way I know my information. But it's very difficult for me to like try to like reverse that. And in the past kind of like sessions or other episodes on the series, I've like given away a lot of like perfectly winnable games because I'm like, oh man, I don't have lethal on my hand, so like that's kind of it. But like they don't know that.
Yeah, they don't know that. Like, here's another thing: Aether Vial is so much more dangerous when it's left untapped on 2. Like when we pass the turn with Aether Vial, we could have anything. Like, it's so difficult to play against an Aether Vial deck when the Aether Vial is even on, because at 2, what could happen? What could we play for 2 mana?
Another Hexcatcher and Lord. Like,
yeah. What else? We could have Hexcatcher, Lord. What else?
For 2.
Yeah.
Are we thinking about beyond what's in our deck again?
Well, we can start with what's in the deck, but we can also say what's beyond.
I mean, it's mostly just Lords in the deck, right? At 2.
There's also Trickster.
There's also Trickster. True. Yeah.
There's Trickster. Okay, and then beyond. What other 2-drops are there in Merfolk?
In Merfolk?
That someone might play.
Would you ever play Phantasmal Image?
Not anymore, but there was maybe a time. But there's quite a few Merfolk players playing Silvergill Adept right now.
Right, to draw a card.
Our opponent has to always consider things like that. So when you pass the turn with Aether Vial on 2, and we have to play this Lord here.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, when we pass the turn with Aether Vial on 2, our opponent has no idea exactly what we're going to do with that thing. It could be anything, but they have to play around all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to play around all the cards that are in our deck and also beyond what's in our deck. Unless it's open deck lists.
So they take 2, and then here's an Expressive, which we're really lucky. I was expecting to really eat it here.
Well, I wouldn't say that's lucky. I really don't like seeing this card.
Yeah, I mean, like, Expressive is definitely not great, but...
Looks like it was sort of bad, though. Okay, so they're choked on mana.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you view the situation here?
I think it's fine. Well, we're definitely putting in 5. I guess they can block here and take only 2, but it's not the worst. They have 4 cards in hand, which is the worst part. We have 0. They only have 1 red source. So for now, they can only remove 1 thing at a time. They can't flame because we'll sacrifice 1 creature for it. If we draw any other Lord or any other Merfolk, we're in like a much better position. So it's not that bad.
No, but like, what's in their hand, you think?
What's in their hand? Okay, so they They had two. They had one discharge. Where did this flare come from? Oh, I think they pitched
the
it.
flare came from the expressive, the expressive iteration.
Yeah. They have an expressive. They have two Tamios. Their hand, they didn't choose to kill our creatures last turn with 3 mana.
Mm-hmm. Something very important happened that last turn.
They played expressive and didn't get a land.
That's right.
So it's
no
all
land
spells.
drop.
Yeah.
It's all spells. It's 100% all spells. And on top of that, expressive looked like it was pretty garbage because they threw away a flare.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they put on. Does it put a card on the bottom?
1 exile, 1 in hand, 1, and then 1 bottom.
Yeah. Okay. So they could have put a good spell on the bottom and kept 1 good spell in their hand. But it's possible actually it completely whiffed because there was no land, and also they can't use. They obviously don't want to use flare. It's also weird that they have flare, but maybe it's not that weird. But okay, their hand is gas. It's like pure gas. But they only have 1 red source.
So we're lucky here that we get to put down the Lord and put some damage on them. And
so
now
they should be at like 3. They should be at 3 life less if we had played that Master of the Pearl Trident the last turn. So they'd actually be virtually at 5. That's something to keep them know. Either they would have blocked with their Snapcaster Mage last turn, because you remember you didn't put that Master of the Pearl Trident in play, right? That was a moment to put that Master of the Pearl Trident in play. So they would have either blocked with the Snapcaster Mage, or they would have taken another 3 damage here to go down to 5. The Snapcaster Mage is a something because of what's it called? It can be Flare of Denial food.
True, yeah. Found another mountain.
They just found their land.
And they flame the Hex Catcher. So sacrifice is just to deny the draw to.
You can, is it target? No, unfortunately both things target. So if you can sacrifice to tax them by 1, but it will, they still get to draw 2, which is fine, by the way, because you're about to put them to 1. So it turns all their fetch lands offline.
Yeah.
And they do need, we probably need one more creature to get through for the win, but it's actually also possible because this is a wizard deck. Hold on, why didn't we counter that?
We did counter.
Oh, we did counter?
Yeah, they just...
you counter, they didn't pay.
Yeah, they didn't pay.
I'm pretty sure it's target player draws 2 cards, right?
Yeah. So if they paid for it, like we countered the whole spell.
Yeah, that shouldn't have happened. They should have paid for it.
They paid for it, true too.
There's no target. Okay, so they shame scooped here.
Yeah. So
we got a shame scoop.
We got a pity shame scoop. We're on the draw this time. We have 2 lands, technically 3. Aether Vial, Hex Catcher, Force Negation. So I think I put back 1 Force Negation for game 3 on the draw, but I think perfectly good hand.
It's fine.
Yeah, they mull to 6.
Having Aether Vial on the draw in this type of matchup is very valuable.
Yeah.
So they have Tamio. Let's see if it is the danger that you think it is. Although I have to admit, we have all the smallest lords possible. So
yeah, hitting 3 Hex Catchers is pretty interesting. So they pay 3 and then attack, make a clue, and presumably pass the turn. You add a counter here.
So what does that mean? They paid 3.
Oh, that means they have counterspell.
Well, they also might want. They probably actually don't have any more lands. Because if they had, I think if they have any other random land, they could use that to crack the clue token. Because they want to crack the clue token 100%, but they can't. So what's also interesting, though, they don't have red mana. Like I'm pretty sure they would just play red mana and pass with their clue. They don't have to. It's such a waste to play your Soporific Springs here, or your Sink into Stupor here as a Soporific Springs. So you always have to like eke out every little piece of information that you can derive from all your opponent's plays, because as your opponent plays spells, plays lands, they're bleeding information. Just like how we bleed information playing our lands. Our opponent is also doing the exact same thing. I would say our opponent does not have red mana. I would also say that they probably have 4 spells in their hand. They may or may not have counterspell. So the thing is with counterspell is it's bad versus merfolk, but at the same time, a lot of decks can't sideboard out enough cards, so they do leave a lot of counter magic post board. So it's still not crazy to see counterspell post board. So a lot of people say, oh, that's a terrible card versus merfolk. You should never have that versus us. But then you look at their deck list and their 75, they just can't sideboard out enough counter spells like the Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, or they probably should keep Spell Snare and dump the counter spell, but like they'll have some range of counter spells. They could have literally counterspell in their deck based on their sideboard, so I would never count it out. But in this case, I think they're definitely playing the land just to crack their blue token.
Yeah, would you think that their hand has more blue cards in general just because they kept just double blue?
Nope.
On the
I think
play?
they could have double bolts, and they're just hoping to draw into it.
Makes sense.
I think Tameo plus 2 lands plus maybe some other interaction is just too strong for them to pass. Did they mulligan too?
They mull to 6, yeah.
Yeah, they mull to 6, so like at 6 they're not going to go further. Like they're not going to pass this up.
Makes sense. So here, I wanted to dismember, but...
Oh, it's not the most mana efficient thing to do?
Wait, what?
So you want to dismember?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're like...
Oh, no, it's the MTG. Like, I don't have a stop.
Oh, okay.
So I kept thinking, this happens all the time, where like, we stop at end step, and then I thought I would have a round of priority, and then I don't. So...
Oh, well, while your opponent has the thing on the stack, you should...
I should have done that. Yeah, I thought I could resolve it, then do it. So they drew the land. So for this dismember, I mean, the end step was obviously the best part to do it, but now I'm holding it a little longer just because next turn I can have 3 mana to dismember and also fight over it with double Hexcatcher.
Also, if you had a stop, why aren't we playing Hexcatcher? Or you just don't want to throw it into Counterspell?
Yeah.
Okay. It's honestly, that's fair. It's not a problem.
I was just thinking that we can be a tiny bit more patient, just because the Tameo isn't... It's bad, but it's not killing us yet.
Although our opponent is going to get like 1 extra card out of this than we wanted to. We are going to dismember now.
Here's a Kits. And then Kitsa.
Kitsa's going to meet their demise. Is this going to be just literal counterspell?
Yep.
Counterspell, and then we can counter it. That's
With
totally
our
fine with me.
Hexcatcher. Yep. We catch it with the Hexcatcher. Leave it at 2.
So now we're in a pretty good position to just pass the turn back and forth and just slowly fill the board with Hexcatchers.
Yeah. So I did...
There was maybe a world, I wouldn't say it's a big one, but there's maybe a world where you could play attack with that Immutavault for 2 because they were completely tapped out. But
yeah,
I completely understand leaving everything up.
Yeah, we could have done that and also still, or like broaden the Hexcatcher and put 3 damage on them and still have 1 mana open to like turn this Mutavault into a thing if we wanted to. I was thinking, so this goes on a little bit. There's a little bit of tennis here where I know that they don't have lands, and it's all gas, right? Because we knew that from before. Yeah. So I figured that our hand is super reactive, where we have double Hexcatcher, Force Negation, and Tidebinder. So as I was thinking, as long as I draw more lands.
Okay. So let's say it's all gas. What is it?
What is it?
Yeah. What's their gas?
They what was Steam Vents? Did they pay 2 life for it, right? Did they? No, they fetched it. No, they play Kitsa, fetched it, and then counterspell. So
yeah.
I mean, it still could be anything, right? Still could be.
Well, what's the anything?
Definitely more removal. We haven't seen any burn spells yet.
Okay.
So
is that a big deal if they play Bolt on our Hexcatcher?
It's not a super big deal. It's a big deal in the sense that, like, I think it's kind of wasted value from our Hexcatcher, because if we can use our Hexcatcher to catch like a bigger spell, then that'd be much more punishing. Like, thinking like our hand has almost all interaction, right? And we're currently representing 1 spell, 2 spell, 3 spell potentially. So ideally, if we have more lands, they can either like blink first and then we'll beat them that way because we have more mana because of the vial.
Yep.
Or we just keep drawing and they start like discarding cards if they don't hit.
I would say the Hexcatcher doesn't have a great shot at lining up versus some of our opponent's spells. Like it might, like at 5 mana, maybe they play Snapcaster Mage into a Flame of Anor or something like that. But I think there's a good chunk of other cards in their range that you can beat. Like, for example, if they have Subtlety. Well, the problem if they have Subtlety is we can't really attack into it. That's a problem. Or actually, because maybe if that's a big enough problem, just Subtlety alone, maybe we can't play Hexcatcher. But I'm thinking, okay, Snapcaster Mage, Tishana's Tidebinder. If they played Tishana's Tidebinder, we could have like played our own Tishana's Tidebinder in response and hit their Tishana's Tidebinder, counter their Tishana's Tidebinder. Because they would play Tishana's Tidebinder in response to our active Ether Vial activation.
Yeah.
What else could they have? They could have Snapcaster Mage. It's actually possible that they don't have any Bolt, but I doubt it. I think they have Bolt. I think they have Bolt or Galvanic Discharge or something like that.
Flame destroys artifacts too. Flame destroys artifacts, which is pretty important because they would probably go after the Vial.
So I'm trying to think if this is a game where we want to pass the turn back and forth. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Sometimes you just go back and forth, because if my opponent does have Tishana's, like, let's say they have all those creatures that we just talked about, Tishana's Tidebinder, Subtlety.
Yeah.
We actually have no attack, even with our Hex Catcher.
Because they just wall.
They could threaten to block, again, making us make a move on our turn, and then that would be bad for us. So like maybe passing the turn back and forth is the best line here.
And it's
so against both removal and their creatures.
You're deciding that is the best line because the other option of us being aggressive just might not work given the potential range of their hand, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the thing is with Merfolk, like, you usually just try to like throw something out there and then start chipping away at their life total. Or if they exchange with a removal spell, then so be it. Like, I will definitely pass the turn back and forth if they are at 7 cards. Because if they're at 7 cards and they have no land drops, then I want to just build up my hand to 7 cards and then make them start discarding a hand size.
Yeah.
But there is another range of hands that they have where they have like just a bunch of counter spells and some creatures. Unfortunately, like, if these Hex Catchers were Island Walk Lords, we'd be in a better position to attack through like their creatures, but unfortunately they're not. They're terrible.
Yeah. So here I put it to 3 just so that we can put the Tidebinder in easily, because before we had 4, so we can Tidebinder double Hex Catcher.
I don't know if I like that. Do you need the Tidebinder to definitely resolve? Are you afraid of like Snapcaster Mage? No.
So I actually thought about that a bit, because I know like 2 means it's an uncounterable Hex Catcher, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, like the thing is the Ether Vial can always go up; it can't go down.
Yeah.
So until we know we need to play this, or until we know we definitely need to play this Tishana's Tidebinder, I really don't like the idea of taking this thing out. All right, so we are in the mode where they're completely screwed on mana, and now they're starting to discard to hand size, which I think is fine. I would keep passing the turn and playing our own land drops and forcing them to blink. But they did show us a counterspell, which is so it's possible their hand is just loaded with counterspells.
Yeah, so here's really interesting. They put a surgical on the Hex Catcher, and in most spells I wouldn't fight over, but given the fact that our hand has 2 Hex Catchers, I realize that I don't have to beat the surgical, I just have to resolve or put all the Hex Catchers on the battlefield.
Yeah. Okay, so our opponent's making a move for us.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Hold on. Okay, backspace. Why didn't we tap the Mutavault?
I think I clicked too fast there. It's going to matter a lot because of the Stern Scolding here.
But you see? Oh,
yeah.
Would it matter? I don't know if it will, because if you play another Hex Catcher.
And I tapped the wrong way, yeah.
Like, these are... So, talking about Merfolk, again, because it is such a weak deck, there's, like, no room for error. There's, like, just almost nothing. Well, I guess it doesn't hurt you that badly here.
We lucked out that they didn't Snapcaster.
They didn't Snapcaster or Stern Scolding.
What happened?
That was definitely a route where we lose.
Could have blown out, got blown out. What happened was I was thinking so hard on like I need to be able to animate Mutavault that I kept it like mentally aside and tapped it. When obviously, if I really needed to, I could tap the island to animate the Mutavault. But that's what happened. So here we have a counter spell on the Hex Catcher, Stern Scolding Hex Catcher, and then we have a Force Negation that we could spend, and a Tidebinder and a Flare. So I wanted to start with the Force Negation to exile the Stern Scolding because now we can't cast it, and then reserve these 2 as like the last cards. Because ultimately we could, if we really wanted to, put in the Tidebinder and flare them.
I wouldn't protect this Hex Catcher at all. I think I would just, like, they have 5 cards in hand. We have almost no cards in hand. Hold on. We're at 12 life. We get 1 thing in play. Is this worth it? If they bolt Hex Catcher, we save it with Mutavault.
And then we get to put down a Tidebinder.
The problem is, like, we have to hope that they have no removal. Like, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, we do have a Flare of Denial to protect against 1 spell. But now their hand is like 5 cards. We have like 2. Here's another situation where we would definitely have one of these Hex Catchers in play if that Vial was on 2. So you have to be very careful about taking the vial up to 3. And until you absolutely need to have that vial on 3, I would have just left it on 2.
Yeah.
We would have had at least one Hexcatcher going in play uncounterable.
Here's a bolt, and then we animate the Mutavault to keep it alive.
Okay, so here's where, yeah, I would be greedy here. I don't really like this Deshanda's Tidebinder play, because like now we don't get to use this versus Snapcaster Mage or Tameo or other Deshanda's Tidebinders, but we're down on cards, so I guess they just had a pile of counter spells in their hand.
Yeah.
The only way they would have conceded here. So we would attack for 5. Maybe we would have won a long time ago, but we didn't know that for sure.
Yeah.
At least we had Flare of Denial up for at least a snap. Because we have Flare of Denial up for Snapcaster Mage, I think this is worth just going all in and hope for the best.
Yeah. So those were the games. I think a lot of the things that I heard was just like, I mean, one of the big things is that I don't spend enough time thinking about like, or bluffing, not really bluffing, but just like trying to play for my opponent's position. So like we kept like playing a lot of our cards out. And
you're definitely playing as if you're playing based on like what's in your hand, but never considering what your opponent thinks about your hand.
Yeah. So
and, like the way you play lands, way you tap your lands are really important, especially with a deck like Merfolk, because we could have a wide range of disruption, counter spells, and so on. We have flash creatures, for example. So like when you tap down too many blue sources, well, that takes out things like Merfolk Trickster from our range, and like literally counterspell or force negation from our range if you tap down too many blue sources, and keep this like Mutavault up, or Cavern of Souls for that matter.
Yeah, so one thing I like to do at the end of each episode is, if you were to give me a grade on the game you watched today, what grade would you give me? It can be any scale you want. A, B, C.
I give you without the Magic the Gathering Online errors, maybe like a 6. With the errors, 5 or 4. You can't make those errors with this deck. So
Yeah.
the main thing with Merfolk is it's too fragile of a strategy. Like all the creatures are really weak. I've repeated this many times before. We have the absolute one of the worst strategies in Modern. We play creatures from our hand. We attack with them. We have to hope that they don't get countered, blocked, or destroyed. We have to deal damage, and then we have to rinse and repeat this process until our opponent is dead. We don't have like Lightning Bolt or Burn or any random free wins at our disposal. So we definitely have to play as carefully as possible at every moment of the game.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, I think you played the game well, or I should say we got the right result that we wanted given how the game played out. But there's like this large range of possibilities where we could have gotten really, really blown out.
Yeah.
I think you would play this deck actually a lot better once you start thinking about a lot about what your opponent can do at every stage of the game. Personally, for me, this is what I'm always thinking about when I'm playing Merfolk. If my opponent has 2 mana up, what is everything that they could possibly play? What is my play that is best against all those possibilities? My favorite play actually did the entire game was when you decided to pass back and forth when your opponent had a bunch of mana.
I was pretty proud of that one too.
Especially when they started to discard to hand size. That's like exactly what you want to do. It
Yeah.
has some risk these days, but we had a lot more room to keep drawing cards, playing lands, and forcing our opponent to make a move or discard to hand size.
I think going back to like the beginning of this session, something I noticed with playing Merfolk was that like it really frustrated me. Like it really frustrated me because it's, as you're saying, it's so precise, right? Like you have to be so careful because the overall like kind of power level of what you're doing is lower than like, playing a Johnny and flip it, right? Or like play a Raptor and get another dude. You have to like be so careful with how you sequence and order and everything that like it was frustrating to need to be that careful. But like now that we kind of talked about kind of all these different places that I could have played better or played differently, it actually makes me want to play Merfolk a lot more, because I think if I just kept playing Merfolk for like a while, it'll make me like the most careful player in the world.
Yeah, which you need. Yeah, it's a funny thing about Merfolk. I think there's a lot of top players that could play Merfolk, but like once you get that good, like why would you want to play Merfolk? But like Merfolk forces you to be patient. Merfolk forces you to play errorless, because the thing with there's a lot of advantages in Magic the Gathering, and one of them is the power level of your cards and the power level of your deck. And the thing is, when you're playing with the tier 1 decks, you're playing with powerful stuff. They are very forgiving. Like, you can make a big mistake, but I rip the One Ring, or I rip my combo card. Oh, they don't matter anymore. Whereas with Merfolk, they all matter. Like, I'm very lucky if I make one mistake and I still win that game. Because usually you make one mistake, you're punished, you lose instantly, as is the case like in that first game when you got hit badly by Snapcaster Mage. Generally, you have to like be very careful not to get 2-for-1 by Snapcaster Mage, or letting Snapcaster Mage get really good value. Or I forgot. No, they played it. They punted it.
We even lucked out, that they didn't hit the right target. But like that first game was interesting because like that game came down to like a couple decisions, but one of them was not subtletying that Kitsa. Because if we subtlety that Kitsa, that little decision would have like massively changed the whole game, because it would put us like a little bit more proactive and not be at the mercy of like letting them just loot and like turning on like flame and all this other stuff.
There's also the thing where if you subtlety and they put it back on top, they have to tap out on their next turn to replay it, and they might be tapped out for us to play Harbinger of the Seas on our third turn. So it puts them more like in those types of matchups, you want them to be playing more on their turn, wasting their mana, and then we get to untap and we get to do whatever we want. And that's the same thing on the other side for them. They want us to waste all our mana, make all our plays on our turn, and they get to fight a war on our turn, and then win or lose, they get to untap and make the best decisions they can while we're tapped out.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited to play this more, even though it really frustrated me. So hopefully the next time we get to do this, I'll be much better, and there'll be a lot more, growth. So is there anything else that you feel like you wanted to cover that you've seen from this game today?
About Merfolk or Magic in general? Like for me,
anything
I try to squeeze as much value as much information. How do I put it? I try to squeeze as much theory I know about games into this deck. Maybe some background. Like, I'm a chess master. I used to play poker at high stakes, and so I'm pretty deep into games in general, and I apply like the knowledge that I have from those former games into Magic the Gathering. And so one big gap was the intangible resource of information in this game. Like, that was just so important at every stage of the game. Whoever has more information can leverage that information. And one big thing with Merfolk is you absolutely need to know deck lists. Like, if you do not know what your opponent is capable of, you are very likely to lose, because like we said, your cards need to line up like almost perfectly with your opponent's threats. Maybe not almost perfectly, but you need to know what you have to save to match with their largest plays. Like, I've lost game that I am most vulnerable, not to like tier 1 decks, but to like tier 3 decks, where like, okay, this is like Boggles from 2014, but it's got a bunch of upgrades, and I have no idea what these upgrades are in 2024, and they might blow me out by something. Like, I was super prepared, for example, with Pioneer Merfolk going into like the NRG series. Round 1, I get paired up against Greasefang, which is not even a deck right now in Pioneer, but like, someone could play it. And then in like match 3, my opponent played, what is that detention? The 3-mana detention.
A sphere of detention?
It's a 3-mana enchantment that removes all the 2-mana cards in play. Creatures.
It's white, right? Is it temporary lockdown?
Yeah. Temporary lockdown, that's right. So they played temporary lockdown on me, and we're like, I could not predict this damn thing. Got completely blown out, and I instantly lost. However, I could have had a way better fighting chance of winning that game had I known that card was even in existence. So against all the tier 1 decks, even tier 2 decks, I was like super well prepared for. I knew all their lists. But once I'm in some sort of like rogue bracket, like, I can lose to anything because I can't line up my cards properly with any of my opponent's threats, or I'm not preparing for them at all. Because against that temporary lockdown, I could play my 3-drops. Or like or hold up counter magic or something. I had a lot of room to play around this card.
Yeah, I recently did a modern RCQ where I played Sorin Rain Ripper. in Rakdos, scam
I
deck.
saw on Twitter.
Yeah, and same thing happened, but on the other end, like the opponents just kept, they had no idea what to play around, so then they would like spend really crucial removal spells that I know that they needed to hold for a Vein Ripper, but you would never like expect to see a Vein Ripper in Modern, right? So it's like very similar thing is like, I guess, highlighting how important information is, because it gives the other person or you so much more, what is it, strategy to like play around stuff, and denying it is like kind of huge.
Yeah, open deck lists, I think, for merfolk is very, 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 very big. Like, when I was in the top 8 of the NRG series, and in the finals, I looked at my opponent's deck list, and they had 2 Galvanic Discharges as their only removal spells. I'm like, okay, that's great to know. I barely have to play around this card.
Yeah.
Right? It's so or it's just borderline unlikely that you have this thing at all. It's way different because I was up against Jeskai Control, and there are Jeskai Control decks out there with like 4 Galvanic Discharge and 4 Lightning Bolt, and it's just a very different type of deck. But you don't know that in the moment, and in some ways you have to still sort of play around all of them to the best of your ability. What else do I want to say about this thing?
We're also really over, so if you don't, if you have something to do, it's also okay too. I don't want to take too much time.
No, it's okay. I have like 20 more minutes left. So like, knowing your opponent's deck list is fine. Like, what did you think about the sideboarding here? What did you think they were going to do?
Oh, I don't even think about what my opponent would sideboard against me.
That's very important. Game 1 is, you can't prepare for their game 1, because you have to prepare for their game 2 based on what you think they're going to sideboard against you.
So I did think like a little bit about what they could bring in. It's just because I also haven't seen the Wizards deck very well, like or a lot. So I assumed at some points they might have Pyroclasm. I was very worried at this game that they were going to bring in like a Brotherhood's End or Anger of the Gods, because that is floating around for some Murktide lists. Pyro.
Let's play chunky creatures, and Wizards doesn't play with such chunky creatures.
Yeah, but I thought like maybe they will like bring those in just to, because everyone has to worry about energy right now, and like a way to clean up all the little creatures very quickly. So I thought potentially they might bring that in just to like, get some value against us, to like 1 for 2, clean up a couple merfolk, and then reserve the Snapcaster just for like a big Flame of Anor later. I did think about Dispute, but I thought they might have Stern Scolding, which I think we saw over here as well, because Stern's really good against our deck.
No, it's not actually. It's a really dubious card.
Oh, because of Aether Vial.
And
Cavern of Souls.
Exactly. But like I said before, some of these decks have so much counter magic in the main, like let's say 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Stern Scolding, 4 counter spells, that they don't have enough cards to side out. They don't have enough counter magic to side out after they side cards in, so they would first shave the Spell Pierces and then start shaving counter spell. So I can assume that they're going to take down counter spells, but they can't side out 8 cards for 8 more cards, or they rarely can. Because like, I'm looking at a random list right now, and they got like 3 Consign to Memory, 2 Stern Scolding. So actually they might replace counterspell with Stern Scolding to upgrade it. I see 2 Surgical Extractions here. That's terrible versus us. They shouldn't have brought that in. It's like basically a dead card. They have 2 Force Negations, also very weak versus us. 2 Invert Polarity. Maybe it's clunky, probably not worth it. 1 Kozilek's Return, or 2, like some of them have 2. 1 to 2 Kozilek's Returns. So actually their sideboard really looks like, if I look at all the sideboards, it looks like they're not being prepared for us, and they would probably bring in Kozilek's Return.
Yeah.
Now let's say we know they're bringing in Kozilek's Return. Would you do anything differently?
Would I do anything differently? Like I would try to be conscious of not letting their Kozilek's Return be too good. I mean, you can only respect cards like so much, but no, I guess, because it's instant speed.
It's instant speed, but it hits 2 toughness creatures, Rebel.
So it kills all of our... Well, we can also play around it by making our creatures bigger.
That, or we actually have a creature that's naturally bigger than 2 toughness.
Oh, is this Phelan?
Well, no. I mean, that one, yes, but no.
Not that one?
Thinking of.
Bigger than... Can I look at my own deck list?
It's right in front of you. It's like...
Can I... Is that an
You don't have to go any further, Rebel. It's right in front of you.
Oh, this guy. No, it's a 3/2.
No.
Oh.
Higher. Cold.
Oh.
Cold. Warm. Pots. Yeah, there we go. There's a card that's naturally will get protected by the sweeper. And it's not that bad in this matchup either, be given that I see a lot of these decks they're usually pretty creature dense. I don't know what they are now. People are trying to play with Thunderclap Trainer. I don't know what the standard lists are, but like, people play with Crackling Drake, Tameo, Snapcaster Mage. What's it called? Like I said, Tashanda's Tidebinder. I honestly don't know what's stock right now, but they can only enable Flame of Anor because they're playing creatures. So Subtlety is never going to be completely dead. It will still die to Bolt and so on, but I'm just saying that makes Subtlety a little bit stronger, which is why I would take out something like Dockhand. I would prefer... Oh, sorry, you did take out Dockhand, but Subtlety has some value over... I'm not sure what left in this deck. Well, I'm not a huge fan of Dismember. I would have kept the Dismember only for that little otter.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit of room to have Subtlety. But the major point I'm trying to say is, what's our opponent's plan versus us? They're usually, at least for Merfolk, they're going to side out Counter Magic to bring in removal. What is that removal? How can we be best prepared for that removal? And if every one of these Wizards decks plays Kozilek's Return, I would have no problem playing with Subtlety. I like the card in the matchup, just because I know they're going to play with some number of creatures, and it's still a flash creature. And as you can see, these games go long. We don't need to immediately play Subtlety. We can wait till we get to turn 4 and then just flash it and play at end of turn, or even tick the Vial up to 4 and start playing it.
Right.
So there's a lot of room to play Subtlety. Also, mind you, now their opponent revealed that they have a mountain. I'm a little happier. To be honest, they probably all should be having one mountain at this point. I'm a lot happier that you shaved 2 Harbinger of the Seas. So it's just more of a dubious card if we know they have mountains in their deck.
Yeah, I thought the Harbinger was really good to shut off the red, but I was also concerned that it just seemed like that was a hard sub game to win because it's a 3. I guess we could just Aether Vial it in, but I was mostly concerned of trying to play around resolving that to lock out their mana versus I guess just trying to pressure them with creatures.
I don't know if every deck list has a basic mountain to go fetch. I'm looking at one right now. I don't see it. So it's possible that is not stock. But once I know my opponent has a basic mountain, let's just say if we know they have a basic mountain, I would shave down on Harbinger of the Seas. So the idea of locking them out is just not really reliable. But if they have no mountain, I would have all 4 post board because that's just a free win machine.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Based on, so I don't know if we had that information going from game 1. I don't think we did, but those are the little things that I got to learn about my opponent's deck on the fly to help give me more information.
Oh.
It's an information war here, Rebel. I mean, this is a hidden information game, and the more information we can get out of our opponent's plays, what they play, what we've seen across over the course of the match, the better we can leverage that. Because that could be the difference between winning and losing the match, really. Maybe we needed all 4 Harbingers in the main deck because they were so vulnerable to Harbinger of the Seas. I don't know which should be the default. I think the default I like is 3 because we don't know for sure. And then if there was a game where I assume that if they have Scalding Tarn and they don't get Mountain, that they probably don't have that Mountain because every Wizards deck, or every blue deck is paranoid of Harbinger of the Seas. They know this is a game-ending play, so they'll be super prepared. And if the game goes on many turns, they have many fetch lands, and they just never get this mountain, then I'm very confident they just don't have it in their deck. Let's just randomly talk about resources in Magic: The Gathering. I look at this game as a matter of there's tangible resources and intangible resources. Let's talk about some tangible resources. What are the intangible resources? What's the tangible resources in the game? I'm going to define that as the stuff we're playing with, not invisible.
Stuff that we're playing with that is visible is mana and stuff you can put on the board, right?
Lands. Yeah.
Lands.
Okay. Lands. What else?
Damage.
That affects a different resource.
Life.
Yes, life is a resource. After all, they say life is a resource. Use it. Or I can't remember.
Yeah, cards?
Raw cards in your hand? Absolutely. Yeah, so cards in play, cards in your hand, your life total. These are all tangible resources. And based on how you use them, it can get you, how do I put it? They say tempo. Well, what do you think is tempo? I know that's like that is such a loaded question.
It's such a loaded question, but I've answered this question so many times, or the way that I've been taught for tempo is
That's fine.
tempo is the amount of effective mana that you can invest into your board.
Fine. I don't mind that. I don't mind that definition. I look at it as just the efficiency of your resources. If you're more efficient with your resources, you're going to tempo your opponent out.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Weird thing with tempo decks though is like there's a lot of situations where you have to waste, like, not be efficient with your resources at all. Like, you just pass the turn with 4 mana up and then just waste all of it because you know you have to like counter some important critical spell on your opponent's turn, and if they pass the turn, then okay, nobody used their mana, so it seems very inefficient for like a tempo deck. But anyway, so I just look at it as the efficiency of using these resources. And the more efficient that we use our resources, playing our creatures, attacking, dealing damage, it affects one of the intangible resources of the game, which would be time. Time and turns. You attack your opponent for 6 damage. They have less time on their hands because they're definitely going to have 1 less turn to play the game. And I sort of say this because there was a game, or sorry, when you
I think it was game 2.
I'm talking about actually you had with Andrea Mengucci.
Oh yeah.
There was a turn where he wants to play Expressive Iteration, even though he can't use the land, so he definitely was not going to get very good value out of it. It's something like that. He was going to be down a card by playing this Expressive Iteration, but he knew that he didn't have the time to wait for it, like wait to get like the full raw card value out of this.
Yeah.
Because he understood that with the clock ticking, with time running out on his side, he was willing to give up tangible resources, which was raw card power, so that he could get back into this game and stabilize before he dies. So there is a point where you want to, if you are losing on time, you are willing to give up raw card advantage, our tangible resources, to keep the game like going so you can stay alive. You know what I mean? Because they're useless if you die. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You don't want to die with 5 cards in your hand.
Yeah.
You don't want to die with a full board. So you're willing to sacrifice those things to buy time. It's almost like time is money, and money can buy you time. Your tangible resources buy you time, and that time also converts to tangible resources because you'll get an extra turn. You'll get an extra draw step. You get to play more creatures. You get an extra attack.
That's really interesting, yeah.
All those things balance to each other.
I think time's like something I think about a lot in Magic, because I actually I thought about time specifically from Brian Cook. He wrote in his CDH primer, I'm sure he introduced the idea or talked about it somewhere else before CDH.
Okay.
But the idea was that the 2 resources of Storm is time and mana, where you want to create as much mana as you can and generate time so that you could pick the right time or pick the right moment to combo off, right? But mana is extremely important to Storm because, Storm needs to take a big action, but
the mana is the most important tangible resource for the Storm deck.
Correct. And also time is very important because the more time you give your opponents, kind of like in an aggro sense, the more they're able to play around or prepare for your plan. So ideally
they'll have more lands in play. They might even have a better clock, or they'll have just more raw cards in hand to eventually deal with this plan.
So in CDH, you mulligan aggressively for something like a Mana Crypt or like a Soul Ring or like free mana, because you're effectively reducing amount of time it takes for you to hit critical mass, and you're able to make a turn 5 play turn 2, right? Which is puts you massively ahead of your opponents. So that's the first time I really started thinking about time relative to Magic. Another interesting thing I kind of heard recently from Ginger's episode is that every time we go to combat, he says I want this to be a 2-turn game, or he'll say based on what might be in their hand, I think this is gonna be a 4-turn game or a 5-turn game. So how do I play that? How do I play a 5-turn game? Because it's different than a 2-turn game when you're on Rakdos.
Right. No, I understand. I think this place Ginger is. Sorry, is it? What's the name?
Derek. Derek or Misplaced
Yeah.
Ginger?
Oh, it was Misplaced Ginger. I
Yeah.
never pronounced his name. So yeah, Misplaced Ginger was recognizing, based on how they were playing the game, that it might go longer or shorter, based on like what information they were probably bleeding from them, based on the start of how the game was playing out. So
Yeah.
like I don't know, because like if they're holding up a bunch of mana, then they're probably going to have removal. If they have removal, then the game's going to go long. If the game goes long, how do we want to play this game? Just like how with merfolk, we knew they had a lot of removal. So if they have a lot of removal, what's the last thing that we want to have on the board that's going to have the greatest impact of winning the game? So we front load the merfolk trickster and we hold back the lords.
Right.
Although ideally in that game, I prefer to play the lords even way later, and just throw out that subtlety.
Yeah.
But also, we can choke our opponent's mana, like with merfolk here. Like I want to pass the turn with subtlety on that turn that we did, because I want to fight the war on their turn. I'm going to be very mana efficient. I'm going to spend 4 mana on the subtlety, and if they want to tap out, then it's going to be harder for them to interact with me on my following turn. And it's still putting out a decent threat.
That's something that like I think about a bit, is like when I want to resolve a spell, like when I specifically know I want to resolve a spell, I cast a lot more, like I'll try to overload my opponent's like mana on their turn to like ram through a spell on the next turn. But I think something that you bring up quite often in Merfolk or in our game specifically is like specifically talking about like winning like a war on their turn so that we get to untap, or like they do it like vice versa to us, which is kind of interesting.
Exactly. And of course, if they tap out, then you have some more room to attack. Activate Mutavault, for example.
Right.
Maybe not always, but the options are open. What else to say? Philosophically about Merfolk, like there's other problems with the deck. Like not only are all the creatures weak, like for example in this matchup, we lose on mana a lot. We will put a 2 mana card in play. They kill it for a 1 mana card. So that is not ideal, but the basic strategy around that is you eventually have to exhaust the removal and then have your most premium creatures be the ones that are left in the end to eventually win. Or in given some context, maybe Tide Shaper their red source, or Harbinger of the Seas their red source, so they don't have removal in the future. So there's like on a baseline, it looks like we should be losing, but there's enough room to squeeze the opponent to interact with us on their turn, or even if they want to do it on our turn. I don't know how to put it. Somehow we do come ahead. There is some inherent advantage to playing Merfolk in this matchup because they have Stern Scolding, they have a lot of counter magic, and we undermine it with like Cavern of Souls and Aether Vial. So there is some inherent card advantage.
We're able to blank a lot of their cards.
Yeah, we blank a good chunk of their cards, even though that we lose out on even though we lose out versus their removal, because their removal is incredibly efficient versus us.
Yeah.
We play creature, it just dies.
I think to go back to the beginning when you said Merfolk is like a control deck.
Yep.
I think for some reason everything, like all decks, I always go back to comparing it to Burn, because I guess like everything only makes sense to me from the Burn perspective. But Burn to me is similar to Merfolk in the sense that you also have to be hyper efficient in how that like lightning bolt works, right? That lightning bolt can be a Doomblade, but it can also just go face, right? It serves like many different roles. And I think what's interesting about Merfolk is that it looks like an aggressive deck. And as you're saying, there's a lot of things that are kind of inefficient, but the specific roles these cards play can sometimes control the opponent when you like identify like that's the way you can get them, right? Like if you're able to, because I've played like Rashad and Dockhand like very aggressively when I can tell my opponent isn't hitting their land drops. The Dockhand's really, really powerful, because then you can like create this imbalance where they can't spend their mana, and then we get to like keep doing stuff, right? Like it's not super good, but when a lot of the cards in our deck all kind of like serve kind of these different roles, we're able to like kind of control the opponent when we know how they like line up, which is similar to Burn in the sense that like we just have to know the rules of our cards like very specifically.
Yeah, but you play better as a control deck when you are passing the turn with your options up.
Yeah.
Whereas, when we're playing all on our turn, like some sort of, aggro deck, we're now revealing our hand to our opponent, that we don't have any other options up. And we've decided to go for this like aggro plan, giving them all the information to either counterspell or kill our creatures. But if we just go land pass like a control deck, they have no idea what we have. We could have Subtlety, we have Tishana's Tidebinder, we have Flare of Denial, Force of Negation. They're all very different cards. Could have Hex Catchers and Merfolk Tricksters. Could have anything. It is also important to know, like, this is a very, very difficult to know if you just start playing a deck. But over time, you start to learn where your role is in every matchup. Like, in general, I lean on being more of a control deck as much as possible. But then there's matchups like Omnath, where I learned actually being a control deck is very bad. I don't want to go the long game, because once they hit 4 mana, then they play Omnath, they play the One Ring, they play Solitude. Like, and all those things are just completely game ending. And so from my experience, playing if I go the long game versus that type of deck, I lose very consistently. So the other option is to just go all out aggro. And it actually worked out. If I'm putting a lot of pressure on my opponent super fast, playing right into Supreme Verdict, I just pretend like it doesn't exist. If they have it, they have it. I can usually rebuild at least one more board. But if I put a whole bunch of pressure on my opponent super fast, it actually forces my opponent to 2-for-1 themselves with their Solitude, which is good, because then they're not going to have it for like a 3-for-0 when they just play it for 5 mana. And I can get my opponent's life total pretty low. And it actually turns out Omnath decks are pretty inconsistent. They might go like turn 4 One Ring, you force a negate it, and then they're dead after that. Or if they Supreme Verdict, then you immediately follow it up with like just flashing a bunch of creatures and activate Mutavault, attack for another 5, and then they're all again really close to dead, and you just have to interact with one more spell before you close out the game. So when you have enough experience with a matchup, you can already know what your role is ahead of time and then play towards that. I should say, if you have a really bad matchup, one really good way of learning out what you have to do is keep track of what the game looks like. If you play a bad matchup like 100 games, at some point, like you have to win some of those games. You have to win some of them. And then you try to identify a pattern of what does that game look like every single time I win. All right, I don't win very often, but when I do, what does it look like?
My secret trick to that is I load up, I did that this RCQ, I jam my bad grief deck into my bad scam deck against energy, just because I was curious, and I won like 1 out of 10, like just goldfishing with myself. And I would like architect like an average Boros energy hand and just go like, what if I got this type of hand? How would that play out? At this point, instead of drawing this, if I drew this instead, would that change the game? So by doing that like for like an hour, I was very quickly able to like identify like we don't have that many outs, but the only like universes we win is if I like open, X cards or like get to resolve these things. That one have a slightly higher chance. So agreed with like figuring out what are the kind of game plans you need to win each matchup beforehand.
Yeah, so Merfolk requires a lot of like losing ahead of time before you like in the community we talk about like mastering this deck. That's why I call myself the Merfolk Master, because you like have to get enough experience before you definitely lose a lot with it. Like my preparation when Modern Horizons 3 came out was just losing constantly to all these new cards. Because like I said, we're trying to line up our cards with the right threats. I have no idea what people were playing against me. And I just got smashed to pieces for like, I don't know, the first 4 or 5 days until I started like figuring out, okay, I know what I know what's coming. So, and then I started to win significantly more.
That makes sense.
So this is definitely a lose and learn deck because of how fragile it is. And again, it's not forgiving. So if you make a lot of mistakes, like maybe it's not for you, but you know what? It's a lot of fun. And I'm the type of person that likes to play these like on the edge.
See, I would say that I do make a lot of mistakes, and I think that's a reason why I should play this deck more, just to smooth out some very basic gameplay patterns and then take the training wheels off later.
Yeah, then go play Murktide. Then that practice will sharpen you for Murktide, because I think it's a very similar-ish type of deck.
Yeah.
Except the cards are more powerful when they are powerful. Like the difference between Merfolk and say Murktide is that instead of having Lightning Bolt, we have like Merfolk Trickster. So Merfolk Lightning Bolt in theory could be useless. Maybe a better example, Fatal Push. Fatal Push against certain decks, stone cold useless. It could like versus a certain control deck or combo deck. Like against Lotus Field or something. I know that's not a deck right now. Your Fatal Push is dead. Merfolk Trickster can interact with creatures, but in a poor way. Like, it doesn't kill it. You're just tapping it down for 1 turn. But it's a 2/2 creature. So, like, worst case scenario, you can just throw it in play versus any deck and start attacking for 2. So, like, it's not a lot of the cards in Merfolk, none of them are like slam dunk great, but none of them are absolutely useless, because at the worst case scenario, they can just get into the red zone and attack for some dirtily amount of damage. And you slowly chip away at your opponent until, like, you can hopefully win the game. But the ultimate problem is that none of them are inherently that powerful, and they can get even, like, in the Merfolk community. I really hate how they think Tishana's Tidebinder is just this massive bloat versus old decks because, oh, I hit their fetch land again. But there's like a point where if you play against players good enough, they never ever fall into that. So they know when I have 3 mana up, they know I can have Tishana's Tidebinder. And I know that they know I could have Tishana's Tidebinder in my hand. So sometimes makes you wonder, do you want to tap out your 3 mana and they crack their fetch land? Usually you do it. But basically, as long as I know I have 3 mana up, they are not going to crack their fetch lands because they are paranoid about Tishana's Tidebinder up, whether I have it in my hand or not.
Yeah. Which goes back to information.
It goes back to information. I think with Merfolk, it's super important it's super important in every single deck, but you want to bleed the least amount of information and gather as much information as you can from your opponent based on what they're playing. I think I'm reasonably good at trying to decipher, like, what's in my opponent's hand at any given time. And that's really important. It wasn't so much in this match, but there's a lot of other matches where there's a super critical turn. Take Cascade, for example. So you know that you can go shields down turn 1. You can go shields down turn 2. But once your opponent gets to 3 mana, you have to go shields up, and you have to be very careful how you tap out unless you are prepared for the Cascade spell.
Yeah.
And then other decks, critical turn might be turn 4 when they can start playing the One Ring. Or you just need to know that critical turn where you absolutely cannot let something resolve because it could be like super game ending. Or you just need to be prepared for that turn, is what I'm saying. So if they have the One Ring, okay, you have Tishana's Tidebinder and you were prepared. Or Hexcatcher. Every deck sucks versus the One Ring, but actually Merfolk plays very well versus the One Ring because we have like tons of counter spells, Hexcatcher, Tishana's Tidebinder. We don't even care.
Yeah. You also have just Force Negations and Flare of Denials that you can tap out for.
Exactly.
Want more coaching? Here's Brian Koval teaching me how to play Legacy and the important parts of bluffing in Magic. Or check out how Mengu teaches me how to maximize value with Modern Delver. With Izzet Murktide. With Modern Izzet Murktide,